Welcome back to the Claude Code series. Last video, we covered how Claude Code actually works, the agentic loop, the tools, the context window. Today, we level up, we extend it. Why extending Claude Code? A quick mental model. Out of box, Claude Code gives you four things: the file operations, search, execution, and web access. That's enough for about 80% of coding tasks. Generally, most people stop there and miss the entire 20% of the value. Extension covers what left. Project convention, Claude should know every session. Custom workflow you trigger with a uh, slash context command, connection to your database or Slack, automation that fires on every event without you asking. They all plug into the same agentic loop you already understand. Let's talk about 6 ways how we can extend Claude Code. 6 extension, each plugs into different part of the loop. Claude.md, persistent context loaded every session. Skills, reusable knowledge, and workflows on demand. Subagent, isolated workers that return summaries. Agent team, multiple Claude session working together. MCP, connection to external services, and the hook, automation that fires on events. And one more thing, plugins. They are the packaging layer. Bundle these into a single installable unit you can share or reuse across repos. Now let's talk about Claude.md. Claude.md is a markdown file in your project root that Claude reads at the start of every session. Think of it as your project rulebook. Use it for things Claude should always know: coding convention, build commands, project structures, the never do X rules. Here is a real example. Use pnpm in not npm. Run test before committing, functional components only, never edit .env files directly. Every session, every convention, Claude knows these things without you typing them. One critical rules to keep it under 200 lines. If it grows beyond that, you are probably putting a reference material in there instead of convention. That's what skills are, which bring us to skills. Skills are markdown files. Claude can load on demand, not every session, only when they are relevant. They come in two flavors. Reference skills are knowledge, things like your API style guide, your database schema docs, your architecture pattern. Claude consult them when needed. On the other hand, action skills. Action skills are workflow procedure you trigger by typing slash name. Type slash deploy. Your team exec deployment checklist runs slash release slash audit. Same idea. Whatever procedure you keep doing manually become a skill. Skill are the most flexible extension for the entire system. Rule of thumb, when Claude.md start getting too long, that's your signal to start moving stuff into skills. One pro tip, Claude can always load skills automatically when it thinks they are relevant. Write good description in your skill formatter and Claude becomes a lot smarter at picking the right ones each time. Now let's talk about subagents. This is generally one of the most powerful concepts, the subagents. Imagine you are working on a feature and you need Claude to do some research. Read 30 files, run a bunch of tests, look up some pattern. Normally, all that floods into your context. And for context, we talked about it, how important it is. The convention get blotted, important early instruction starts getting lost. Subagent fixed that. You spun a subagent with a focused task. It run its own separate context window, completely isolated. It does the work, then sends back only the summary you actually need. Your main session stay clean, your context stays focused, The work still gets done. Use subagents when you don't need to see the intermediate work, only the result. It's the cleanest way to handle long session. Next, we talk about agent teams. Agent teams takes this one step further, and yes, this is where things get experimental. Subagent report back to you. Agent teams talk to each other. You can spun three independent Claude session, one reviewing for security, one for performance, and one for test, and then share the same task list and message each other directly. No central coordinator. Teams are best for parallel research with competing hypothesis. Large code reviews, a feature where each teammate owns a separate piece. One important note: this is currently experimental and disabled by default. Worth knowing it exists, probably not your day one move. Now, let's talk about MCP. MCP, also known as Model Context Protocol. This is how Claude talks to outside world. Without MCP, Claude can read your files and run your terminal. That's it. It can't query your database, it can't post to Slack, it can't control a browser, it can't fetch your internal API. With MCP, all this become possible. You connect to a server, there are hundreds of them now, and suddenly Claude has new tools available. Database tool, Slack tool, browser tool, GitHub tool, whatever the MCP server exposes. If you keep finding yourself copying data from another tab and which Claude can't see, that's the trigger. That's when the MCP become worth. Now let's talk about hooks. Hooks are different from everything else we covered. Scales, MCP, even Claude.md. Claude treat them as context, not as a guaranteed rule. Claude reads, decide, applies judgment, which means sometimes Claude gets it wrong. Hooks executes directly. They fire every time, same way, no exceptions. So if you write a hook that runs ESLint after every file edit, it runs after every file edit. If you write a hook that blocks RM minus RF, it blocks it always. If you want a Slack message every time a session ends, it sends one. Here's the rule of thumb that took me ages to internalize. Instructions in Claude.md are request. Hooks are enforcement. If a rule absolutely must hold every time, make it a hook. Now, let's talk about when to add what. The most, and this is one of the most useful slide, uh, you don't configure all of this at day one. Let triggers tell you what to add next. Claude gets a convention wrong twice, add it to Claude.md. Keep typing the same prompt, save it as a skill. You paste the same playbook three times, capture it as a skill. You copy data from tab Claude can't access, connect it via MCP. A side task floods your context with output you will never read. Route it to a sub agent. Something must happen every single time, write a hook. Another repo needs a same setup, package it as a plugin. Memorize this table or screenshot it. This single mental model will save you weeks of trial and error. Now let's talk about skills versus sub agent. A few of these can sound similar. Let me clear one thing. Skills versus agents, people are very much confused with this. Skills are content, reusable instruction or knowledge that loads into your main session. They share content across contexts. Subagents are workers, isolated execution that runs separate from your main session. They isolate work. Skills are best for reference material and workflows you trigger. Subagents are best for tasks that read many files or do work you don't need to see. Different problems. They combine well. A skill can spun a subagent. A subagent can preload skills but know which you are reaching for. Now let's talk about hooks versus skills. Other commonly confused pair, hook versus skills, are both can run procedures. The difference is guarantee. A skill is interpreted. Claude reads the instruction and decide how to apply them. Outcome can vary. Hook is guaranteed, always file on its event. Claude doesn't decide it. So skills are the things like release checklist or a debugging playbook where Claude needs to think. Hooks are for format on save, blocking dangerous command, logging, where you absolutely cannot have a variation. If the rule must hold every time, make it a hook, not the prompt. Now, next we will talk about context cost and which are the expensive and procedures. One thing nobody talks about, every extension you add costs you context, some more, some less. Claude.md is always loaded, every request, every time. That's why you keep it under 200 lines. Skills are low cost, only description load at session starts, full content only when used. Now, MCP servers are also low tools and only the names are loaded, but full schema only load when Claude actually calls the tool. Subagent hooks effectively zero cost in your main context. Subagent run in their own window. Hook runs externally. Run slash context to see what's currently using the space. Run slash MCP for per server cost. Two commands are very useful. Keep a note of them. Now let's talk about what the real setup looks like. Here's what a real Claude Code setup looks like in a project I am working on. Claude.md at the root with project conventions, a skill folder with two skills, slash deploy as an action skill, API style as a reference skill. A hooks folder with a lint script that runs after every file edit. An MCP config connecting Claude to Postgres and Slack. Look what each one gives you. Every session knows the project convention. That's Claude.md. Type slash deploy and your skill team exec deployment procedure runs. That's a skill. Linting always happen. No nagging Claude. That's hook. Claude can query a database and post status updates. That's a MCP. This is a difference between using Claude Code and making Claude Code yours. Now, one last bit of advice, don't try to set all this up on day one. Day one, just Claude.md. Start with a single file project convention only. Week one, add your first skill, probably your most repeated workflow, slash deploy slash review. Week 2 or 3, add MCP or whatever Claude can't see, and hook for whatever absolutely must happen every time. When the setup matures, package it as a plugin. Now you can reuse it across repo or share with your teams. Best setup grows organically, one repeated friction at a time. Let's recap. Claude.md, skills, subagents, MCP, hooks, 6-way, one Claude. Now you know which to reach for and exactly when. In the next video, we're building your first skills from scratch, the most useful one I have personally written. Like, subscribe, hit notification. I'll see you there. Thank you very much.